Hey guys, Andrew and Jonathan here, back with the last installment of the Meta Snapshot series, taking a look at the black leaders and the multicolored leaders that we find are the best going into this new format, and starting off with Vegeks. What are your thoughts on Vegeks, Jonathan?
I hate it. I, my head hasn't stopped since the band list either. So,
Yeah,
uh,
the deck
and it's
definitely
only
took a
because
hit, but it's still very,
e-
very
e-
strong.
even though the deck is not as strong as before, um, it's still the card that bothers me the most about the deck. And I would have been okay if they only banned that card, but I think the Bavity Super Combo is way too much. Like it has to be banned at this point. This card is way too powerful.
I'm kind of at a crossroads because I feel like every color is doing some strong stuff, and I feel like now with the ban list, I don't think that black has anything going for it except Bibbidi. And my favorite deck is Vegek, so I am biased, but um, I really don't think that. I think if you remove Bibbidi, I don't think there's much of a point to play Vegex anymore. It just doesn't do anything. I mean, it's okay, but it won't be able to compete with the other decks. So I'm kind of at a crossroads there.
The problem is that the card is too powerful. They just made it too powerful for its effect.
I
I
agree.
think if it's maybe watered down a little bit, but it's just the card is just way too over the top. Because the deck literally could be just the cards like if nothing else, it could be the cards that you play they get played for free, a super combo and a bunch of extra cards, and I think the deck could still be okay. Because it's just the super combo what bothers me about the deck.
Yeah, being able to double strike people with the bibbity behind it just feels like Mirror Champa all over again. But
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
have
exactly
to
what it is.
I have to pose the question. I have to be the bad guy. All right, I we can lose bibbity in black, but you have to lose Obuni in blue. It's fair, right?
But to be fair, Obuni is kind of a broken car, so even though it will hurt me, I think it will make the meta a lot healthier because
Yeah.
it does those two cards are really too powerful. So even though it will hurt me, it will crush my soul. I think just getting rid of Beatability out of the format would be amazing. It would be like the problem solver of my dreams, to be
All
honest.
right, all right. I agree, I agree. So the Bibbidi rant, yes, Bibbidi is really, really strong. It's what makes this deck still possible. I've still found a lot of success playing this particular build. It's the deck that I've been playing nonstop, tweaking, getting to the perfect. I think this is where I want to be. Just utilizing early overwhelms to mill more. So mill with your leader, mill with the overwhelms, get some bodies on board, apply some pressure. And the overwhelm to set up your 6 and 7 mana ejects. Um, interweave your value plays, buying back Bibbities with Fu, cycling through your deck with the 4-drop Majin Buu, and just overall just creating a nice strategy where you can win games multiple ways. You can control the board through your big creatures, removal, and just a lot of pressure on unisons, just having a lot of attacks. Or if they're like a self-awakened leader, basically as soon as you see a leader at 4 life, they're in kill zone. You know,
Mhm.
they're gonna die to
Absolutely.
Bibbities. If you sequence right and you play right, they will die to that. Sometimes it kind of just feels inevitable. They don't have enough negates to stop you. If they weren't
Mhm.
able to pressure you enough into that point in the late game, you're going to win. So it's going to be very tricky of finding out which matchups you have to play slower, which matchups you have to play faster. And it really just depends. I generally go based on the life total that my opponent is at. If they're at 8 life, I probably shouldn't be attacking their leader. I should be looking to play the long game and attack the board and
I
go
mean
that way.
that's why I like about your list. Is that it plays all the bases. Like you could play early on, super aggressive with the trunks and getting good mills,
Hmm.
or it could be like a mid-range deck with the Vegex Overarm that you can play for three, and then on top of that, just banish the opponent's field and get two double strikers for free.
Hmm.
Or you just could play the long game, which is just value through the tank, the just milling with the opponent, like milling with the leader, getting free value there. Just getting with the 5 mana Hachiyak, just getting again just the same Vegex because you can play multiple times because usually you're gonna have a bunch of them, a bunch of trunks and Vegetas in the warp, and you can just play them for free. Just buying back super combos, doing double strike every turn. The deck has a lot of like you can play all the basics. You can play early in. You can be play like a mirror game, and then you just on the late game you can just drop a black smooth dragon and win that way too, which is like all the basics in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with Jax is one of those decks that now just has to adapt to what the opponent is doing. If the opponent is trying to be aggressive, you be aggressive right back. If the opponent is trying to play a long game, you kind of have to be play that long game with them sometimes. So
Mm.
you kind of just have to pick your spots, play around the unison counter plays because they do hurt your big 6 mana and 7 mana of Jax plays, and just kind of figure out where and when you need to do what and to win the game. So that's what I like about the deck. It's definitely you have to be very creative to win now. It's not as
Mhm.
simple as it was before. It's not just swarm them with attacks. You're not gonna have that many attacks. Your mills aren't gonna be as good
Mhm.
because the deck just needs more options now. It needs more options. It can't be as consistent as it was before. It needs to play a longer game, which means playing, in my opinion, 60 cards because sometimes you just can't finish the game with 50 cards before you have to reshuffle, and then it takes a
Yeah,
while for your bibbities to get strong again.
yeah. Before you wanted to play a 50 card list because you wanted to be as consistent with the mills as possible and just getting like just throw the hand onto the field and be as aggressive as you can. That was the old game plan. But now the game plan just have to evolve into I'm just gonna outvalue the opponent in some occasions and in some others I just have to you switch it up depending on what the opponent is doing.
Yeah, it's definitely a deck that plays both sides of the coin and goes into its sideboard to kind of fit the strategy that it needs to more, depending on the matchup. So I think it's a very good deck. Still, I think the best black leader by far. Just a
Hmm.
lot of value,
Absolutely.
a lot of fun still. And I think it's being underlooked, overlooked, rather, but it's still a very, very strong game.
Oh no, it's still one of the most powerful in my opinion. It's up
Yeah,
there with the top contenders.
yeah. So definitely this deck will be prevalent. It'll be in the top cuts. It might even win the tournament. So
Hmm.
definitely, if you're still looking at, the ban list or whatever, and you think that Vegex isn't good anymore, not the case. I think it's still very, very good. I invested into this deck. I bought it. I made it nice and foily because I really enjoy playing it. So
And then the balance hit.
yeah. No, no,
And we
no. It
have
was
to get it
after.
work anyway.
It was after the ban list. It was after the ban list that I decided to invest
To
into it.
commit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I knew something was gonna get hit, it was just too strong as is. Really, that's so as it was. So now it's more balanced, it's more fair, and people can beat it, and it can beat you, which is fine. It's good to have a strong black leader, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really black leaders matter. Uh, so
All right.
moving on to the other black leader that I think is competitive, definitely takes a more straightforward approach. Is Kid Goku.
Okay, Goku. Yes. So there's a couple things that are new to the deck. Mainly the Bulma is what makes the deck a little bit more resilient because you can kill the Ox with the Awakening for the Harpley and then get it back, right? I'm correct
No,
on that,
no,
right?
you can't do it off of your
Oh,
own
no.
play, but
Okay,
the
so you.
idea is that the only way that you dealt with these monsters that this deck brings out was through removal anyways. You were not
Fair enough. Okay, yeah.
comboing up to 30 and KOing it. So what Bulma adds to this deck is basically my 30Ks are gonna stick. Either you're gonna KO them through some type of skill or warp them or whatever, and then I'm gonna replace them with a Bulma plus another one for the drop. So that's the essence of this deck. It's just we know we're not
And one
gonna
thing
combo to 30. So
yeah, correct. And one other thing that I like about this deck is that it gets to play a one card, one mana unison, which is quite strong. That's one thing that we didn't talk about in the Green Leaders. The Migra is one of the most powerful ones to me because you can just play it on turn one and just absolute value on that guy.
yeah, and it's nice. They have a little bit of protection. I mean, this one does require you to drop a life. The Meager is a little bit better in letting you take the life, but this unison is very strong. Shenron Unison of Rescue. I feel like it's very difficult to build a deck that isn't Kid Coup with this card because it just relies on having skillless in play. I think the
Hmm.
only other leader that you can probably play this in that will work is probably the reboot hit leader, where you're just bringing back vanillas from the drop area. I think it would be pretty good there. If you're not playing something like Sin Shenron already, but it does allow. It's really good in this deck because this deck loves to give everything double strike. This deck is a go 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 deck. It's very aggressive. It's probably one of the most aggressive decks that we've gone over so far. But it's what that's what you're doing when you're playing a heartfelt plea deck. You want to
Hmm.
just pressure and get to the
And
point
go,
of the
go, go.
exactly. You want to kill them as quickly as possible. And this Kid Goku does. He's very resilient. Awakening at 6 life. He doesn't have to worry about defense too much. He has a lot of good defense just built in. He has Topo by splashing into red as a secondary color.
And just the
Um,
Dragon Balls are a really good defense for this deck.
Yeah, and just being able to recycle Dragon Balls. This deck is not playing any negates or anything like that. It just wants to kill you. So
It's the
that's
name of the
basically
game.
where
Yeah.
this deck is at. It's very simple, straightforward. The synergies that are built in is just about attacking. It's attacking, landing double strikes, landing with crits, and finishing off with Heartfelt Plea or something like Demigra, uh, depending on the situation, you know.
Yeah, it is definitely a more a simpler deck. I just want to do hard play and you just want to like just attack like take a life when you want to, so you can do double strike or critical and just play a bunch of guys for free with the Kiku. It's a
Yeah.
really simple deck, really.
It's a
It's
very simple
straightforward,
deck,
yeah.
but it wins. It's a good strategy. It can get
Absolutely,
under it
absolutely.
can get under you really quickly if you're not prepared for Heartfelt Plea. All of a sudden you're at 3 life and you're looking at a 30k triple strike and he's going for game on turn 2 or 3,
Hmm.
depending on how things went. So it's very tricky. You know, you got to make sure that you're prepared for something like this. It's not the only aggressive deck in the format, but I do find it to be the best aggressive deck alongside Green Gohan, which I think is a little bit less resilient than this one. It's just it's very strong, but being able to just get negated out of the sideboard feels really bad for that deck.
Yeah, yeah, definitely
The
is.
prevalence of the blue yellow Zamasu super combo really hurts that deck. Uh, and yeah, so that's why there's something like this is a
Yeah,
little bit more,
resilient to removal
resilient.
and to negates and to it's just gonna get the work done, I think.
Yeah, and the good thing about this aggro deck is that since it's building a board, its way of winning is putting these vanillas into play that are hard to remove, especially now because of the Bulma protection. It can also play a long game. Like it could
Yeah,
just, if there's 2 to 3 30Ks on board, or 20Ks or whatever, as long if there's that much power on the board, something's
yeah,
gonna give. Like you're gonna have to figure out, or you're gonna lose. So
yeah. At that point, a Booney doesn't do anything. Like
exactly.
if you have to defend three Ox Kings every turn, it's just like there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, so that's just the strength of this deck. Definitely something to look out for. I expect people to still play Kid Goku strategies. It used to be a grindier deck. I think it wants to now push the pace a lot more, take advantage of the fact that it sees a lot of cards. It's able to combo really effectively and just set up easy wins, with Heartfelt Plea. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's where I think that this deck should be, and I think it's the second best black leader.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
And moving on to the multicolors, top dog is definitely going to be Invoker. How do you like? I know
Uh,
you've been playing a lot of Invoker. How do you like the list?
I actually like Invoker. I didn't used to like Invoker before because it was so linear. They just wanted to do like victory strike every turn and every game, and that kind of bores me a little bit because if you have to do the same thing every game to win, it's just like kind of bores me a little bit. But now we have the three mana Goku, and the three mana Goku is really, really, really good. It just adds defensive power to the deck, which didn't have before, because it's a 10k if you have a multicolor, which you're always gonna have. And then there is also on turn 5, you can just kill the opponent out of nowhere. Because even if they play the in blue, for example, the trunks to bounce it back, you can make plays where you can attack on top of energy and play it again, and then they just don't have another counter play, and then you just go for game because you tap, you evolve for free into the guy that burns you, untap 3 energy basically, and then burn the opponent, burn the opponent, burn the opponent. So and you get 2 cards for free at doing that. So definitely more resilient at what it does, and it really has that game plan where you topo, and if they try to push through topo, you can really punish them because this deck does have a lot of negates and can play like if you try to go if try to kill the opponent through a topo, you're gonna regret it. It's not gonna happen. It's better to stop once you get topo.
Yeah, it's just, and I think Invoker is one of those decks that just has always been strong since it was first released, and probably will always be
Hmm.
strong because it covers a lot of bases, you know. It
Hmm.
covers go wide strategies. It covers, big boss monsters, most big boss monsters,
Hmm.
with Death Beam or Condemnation. It's able to draw a bunch of cards. It's able to just, impose its will pretty easily and kind of leave you. There's nothing you can do basically, and
Absolutely.
that's the cool thing about playing these types of control decks like Sin Shenron and Invoker is that it kind of just like I don't know what to do anymore. Like I got no options. Um, but I do think that this is a deck that requires an extremely experienced and skilled pilot to make the best of because there are going to be a lot of games where you do not have what you need. Like you don't have the perfect answer for the situation.
I completely agree. At first, it was really hard for me to understand the concept because you don't really know what to keep with the deck. Like sometimes you keep extra cards just for the cycling effect because it's good because you wanna get him into the graveyard and then you wanna get him back to the hand with the leader's effect
Hmm.
instead of looking at the opponent's hand. So you wanna keep a couple of extra cards too. So you wanna look for topo. You wanna look for the win condition, which is either the victory strike or the combos. So, or you want to look for the really important card, which is the 3 mana Vegeta. So, like, there's a lot of things that are going on in the deck, and it really takes a lot of like learning with the deck and finding out what's the best place for the deck.
Yeah, and another thing that I feel is like the deck is going to be stretched thin or just be less consistent. And what I mean by that is it really wants a lot of different cards in order to make certain plays, and we'll just have to see. And I don't think this list has all the bases covered, in the main deck. And I'm
Hmm.
not sure that you can fit all the bases covered in the main deck because you
Yeah,
do
yeah.
want your Tyranny's cost against the hand destruction decks. You want the cooler arrival against unisons that are problematic, like the blue unisons that just allow the trunks
Hmm.
counterplay. The blue, the just unisons that can mess with your strategy. You need to pressure them, which is something you didn't have to worry about before. So depending on the meta and the situation, this deck is going to evolve. We've seen some success with this list. It's definitely been good, but generally things that get under it are the way to go. Vegeks not being as big of a problem for the deck as it was before, but if they go first, you're still very behind. And just a lot of strategies, blue decks going first against you feels very difficult. So I don't think that Invoker is the same giant that it was before. I do definitely think it's meta playable, definitely going to top some events, might even win some events, but it's going to
Yeah.
require the right perfect list and a lot of testing to get to that point.
Absolutely, absolutely, and especially the unisons have been the biggest problem for this deck, I think.
Yes.
Because they add another dimension where you can't really interact with the unison with all the extra cards that you have. You cannot really interact with it. So then it's a card that is always gonna pressure you. It's always gonna get the opponent value. So that's the main thing that that is hindering the deck as to his full potential, I guess.
Yeah, it just unisons, they're gonna be a problem for this deck, and they're gonna provide some defense against these victory strikes and getting burned out. So
Hmm.
this deck is really going to require a well-versed and, like with every control deck, a
Hmm.
well-versed understanding of the format. So if you're
Correct.
a
Hmm.
person that's experienced with Invoker, definitely take a tackle at it. Shape the deck to what you need. Um, there's just a lot of cards that I feel you want or need in certain situations, which you either can't fit in the deck or won't have at the time. That makes it very tricky to play. So, but I do definitely think it's going to be one of the top tier decks, definitely tier one. Just a very strong strategy.
I
It
do agree.
wins.
I do agree. Hmm.
It wins. in a non-interactive way, but it's really the thing about Invoker is not about how you win, it's about how you get there. Um,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know you're gonna win this way, but getting there is not always the easiest way to do.
exactly. So that's kind of the beauty of the deck. It's not about the way you win, because the way you win is one of two ways every time. You're either burning them out or victory
Victory
striking.
strike, yeah.
So just make sure that you understand the deck fully before tackling something like this. And then moving on
Mm-hmm.
to the second
Best multicolor.
multicolor leader, we have Cell Surge.
And this deck is basically close to the same deck that it was before. The only card that really shines here are the Unison, which with all the leaders, but the 9 mana sale card that you can just play for free if you have 4 energy and you're a cell leader. That's the card that makes this deck possible because it makes all your 9 mana successor plays easy to do.
Yeah, and just remember one ruling with this card: you do need something on board before you can play him for free. It doesn't matter if it's a
Mm-hmm.
one drop or anything like that. Just make sure you have something on board. And basically, this deck, what it's trying to do is just just play these strong successors that you get access to. Looking at your opponent's hand. Can be brutal, especially against a deck like Invoker. They don't have many win conditions. If you take them all, it's really difficult for them. The crit against leaders that can't self-awaken, you can crit them down to 4, or leaders that awaken at 8 life, you can crit them down to 4 if they don't have a way of
Mm-hmm.
taking their own life. So I do think that this leader does some things that are very strong in the meta, and just has some very powerful win conditions overall. It's just
It
super.
does, and before with I learned this about the leader that he's not like as weak against like swarming decks because he has a really good defensive strategy for him. Like when you can tap out all the opponent's turn, next turn, that's a really good defensive ability for this leader.
Yeah, I mean the value that that generates is almost like, it's insane. It's like almost like topoing your opponent's turn because everything
Mm-hmm.
coming into play in rest mode basically means that you're not going to die next turn. Very unlikely that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to die next turn. So I think that this leader is doesn't seem that strong, but after you play against it a few times and you understand what it's doing and how it's able to defend itself and play its game, it's gonna be a very powerful, very powerful
I agree.
contender.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has good matchups against a lot of the current, really strong meta decks. They just can't interact with these 9 drops. It's just basically, turn 4 hits and all these 9 drops come out, and there's not much that interacts with the 9 drops. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this deck evolves, if it's going to stay something the
Performs, yeah.
same, what it's going to do in the sideboard to help its weaker matchups. I think its weakest matchup is definitely green hand control. It doesn't generate the value that you would like from these types of slow strategies. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have the biggest hand size. But you definitely got a big boost from the 9 drop cell, being able to self awaken and also draw a card from the drop area. And you always have your Jaw Monkeys and your Ribriannes to kind of keep in parity. And just defending yourself with Kakunsa, Vegeta the Cruel, and so on. So it has a very, very solid strategy. I've enjoyed playing the deck. Uh, I'm not sure if it's going to top or be one of the best decks, but it's definitely something you should be prepared for and understand how it works so that you know
How
how
it
to
works.
beat it. Because it is very good.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Yeah.
And yeah, that wraps up our meta snapshot. Let us know if you like these types of videos, if you like us to do these, every once in a while to update you on the format. And yeah, just any general feedback.
All right.
All right, guys. See ya.
Hey.